The sky was clear that evening on the quiet farming moon called Oral 3. Jack Holt, a retired human soldier, was fixing the fence around his small vegetable farm. He lived alone, far from the town center. His life was peaceful, quiet, and a little lonely. That's how he liked it. But then, the sky cracked open. A loud boom echoed above him. He looked up and saw fire falling from the stars. A burning object streaked across the sky and disappeared behind the hills near the edge of his land. Jack dropped his tools. Not a meteor, he muttered, too slow and too controlled. He grabbed his old rifle, climbed onto his hoverbike, and drove toward the smoke. The crash site wasn't far, just beyond the tree line. The earth was torn open, trees were burning, steam hissed from the soil. In the center of the small crater, a sleek silver pod lay tilted on one side, cracked open like an egg. Inside was someone. Jack stepped closer and froze. It was a woman, but not human. She had smooth skin with a faint blue shine, long dark hair that shimmered like night. Water, and her eyes, closed, had long silver lashes. She wore a damaged silver suit, torn at one side. Her chest moved, weak but alive. A small blinking device was attached to her neck. Red lights, a timer counting down. Jack's soldier instinct kicked in. "She's alive," he whispered. "But what the hell are you?" He climbed into the pod carefully, avoiding the sharp edges, and reached for her. Her eyes suddenly snapped open, glowing gold. She stared into his face for 2 seconds, then grabbed his shirt weakly and said in perfect English, "Human, please marry me or I will die." Jack blinked. "What?" Her hand shook. "Say yes. Say I belong to you. Say I'm yours." Then her eyes rolled back. She collapsed into his arms. The timer on her neck beeped louder. 29:42, July 29:41. Time was running. Jack didn't know who she was, didn't know what kind of game this was, but he knew what death looked like, and she was right on the edge of it. He carried her out of the pod, placed her on his bike's trailer, and raced back. Home. Inside, he laid her on his bed and connected his med scanner. Her vitals were dropping. Blood pressure low, oxygen weak. His scanner tried to identify her biology but failed. "Unknown species," it said. The device on her neck still blinked red. Every few seconds, it made a sharp warning beep, like it was waiting for something. Jack stared at her face. She looked peaceful now, pale, beautiful in a strange way, too still, too quiet. Then, her lips moved again. A whisper. "Please. Say it." Jack hesitated. He wasn't married, never had been, never wanted to. But right now, this wasn't about feelings. This was about keeping someone alive, so he leaned closer and said, "You're mine." The device on her neck beeped once, then turned green. Her chest rose with a long breath, and her eyes opened again. She looked at him, tears in her glowing eyes, and smiled. "Thank you, husband." Jack's face turned pale. "Wait, what?" But she had already closed her eyes again. Sleeping now. Safe. Jack sat back and stared at the blinking green light. What the hell just happened? He had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but never this. "I think I just got married to an alien," he muttered, and outside the window the stars above shimmered, as if something or someone was watching. The early morning sun lit Jack's small cabin in soft gold, but Jack wasn't looking outside. He was sitting in a chair beside the bed, staring at the alien woman. She lay still, breathing quietly. The strange device on her neck was no longer blinking red. It pulsed soft green light now, like it was satisfied. Jack rubbed his eyes. "I can't believe I said it." He looked at her again. "I told a stranger I was hers. And not just any stranger, an alien who crashed from the sky." Suddenly, the woman stirred. Her hand twitched. Her eyes fluttered, open. Jack stood up, alert. She looked around slowly, then met his gaze. For a moment she said nothing. Then, "You're still here." Jack crossed his arms. "Well, yeah. You crash-landed on my land, then asked me to marry you while half dead." Her calm face turned serious. "That wasn't a request. It was a biological emergency." He raised an eyebrow. "That's one way to propose." She sat up weakly and touched the device on her neck. "This is a survival collar. My species cannot live long outside our home system without forming a bond." Jack frowned. "A bond?" She nodded. "A life match. Our bodies were designed for harmony. Alone, we fade. But when connected to another, especially one with compatible energy, we survive." He looked confused. "Wait, so your body was shutting down because you were alone?" "Yes, the collar monitors my life signal. If I fail to bond in time, it shuts my system down. Peacefully, but permanently." Jack sat down slowly. "So, me saying you're mine, that activated the bond?" "Yes," he blinked. "And now you're not dying?" She gave a soft smile. "No, I'm yours." Silence filled the room. Then Jack said, "You know, on Earth, marriage usually starts with a few dates." She tilted her head. "What is a date?" Jack sighed. "Never mind." He stood and walked to the counter to make some tea. "So, what's your name?" "Rilara. I'm Jack." She nodded. "I know." He looked back. "How?" "The collar scanned your voice, matched it to local records. I know your name, your history, your military files." He turned sharply. "You read my files?" "Only what the collar allows." Jack narrowed his eyes. "So you know I'm a former soldier, that I don't trust easy, that I like being left alone." She looked down, then quietly said, "Yes. But I also saw this. When I reached for help, you didn't walk away." That hit Jack harder than he expected. He poured the tea in silence. Later that afternoon, he ran a deeper scan on the device. His tools couldn't decode it, but one thing was clear. It was connected to her body, her pulse, even her brain waves. And worse, if the bond broke, the system would shut down again. "So I can't unsay it," he muttered. Rilara sat nearby, watching birds outside the window. "If you reject the bond now," she said softly, "my life thread will collapse." Jack sighed. "That's a lot of pressure for a guy who lives alone in a cabin." She turned to him. "Then I will be quiet. I will stay out of your way. I just don't want to die." Her voice cracked slightly. "Not after finally finding someone who didn't turn their back on me." Jack didn't know what to say, but deep inside, something stirred. Something he hadn't felt in years. Responsibility, not as a soldier, not as a farmer, but as a protector of someone who chose him. It had only been 2 days since the crash, but already Jack felt like the world was changing around him, and not in small ways. Rilara, this alien girl who now lived in his cabin, was still recovering. Her skin had more color now. Her voice was stronger. Her movements no longer slow or weak. She had started asking questions. Too many questions. Why do humans boil water for leaves? What is the meaning of privacy? What is a wife beater? The shirt? Why do you eat with tools when your hands are right there? Jack answered as best he could, at first. But some questions made him uncomfortable, especially when she pointed at an old family photo on the wall and asked, "Was that your last bondmate?" Jack had just gone quiet. Outside the house, Rilara had started walking. She wandered through the small garden, touched leaves, stared at insects, talked to flowers. But the problem was, she didn't stay invisible. The village of Highfield, a simple farming town with old values and watchful eyes, didn't take long to notice something was off. Someone saw her through binoculars from the ridge. A trader spotted her glowing skin under Jack's porch light, and a curious teenage girl posted a blurry photo online. Old Man Holt has a girlfriend, and she's not human. At the small tavern, the whispers began. You hear what he's hiding up there? She's probably a scout for an invasion. Or worse, one of those gene thieves. If she's bonded to him, he's a dead man walking. Jack didn't care much for village gossip. He'd been ignored for years. People barely talked to him after the war. Fine by him. But now, people looked, watched, and sometimes, worse, followed. One evening, Jack came back from the supply depot to find Rylara cooking something strange on his stove. It smelled purple. Somehow, she turned and smiled. I studied your cooking files. You like eggs and this, what is it, hot salt? Pepper, Jack said, dropping his coat. That's pepper. Yes, pepper. I will learn. He glanced at her plate. Was a mess, but it was hers. He smiled a little. Thanks. Then his scanner beeped. A drone had passed over the house 3.2 minutes ago. Unauthorized surveillance. Identity. Blocked. Jack froze. We're being watched. He didn't tell Rylara. He didn't want to scare her, but he powered up his old war-grade jamming grid and placed silent sensors around the cabin. That night, as Rylara sat by the window learning how to braid her hair from a downloaded tutorial, Jack looked at her and asked, Why did you really choose me? She answered without turning, Because when I looked into your eyes, you looked back. You didn't see a thing, you saw a person. Jack felt something in his chest tighten. She continued, And maybe I wanted to belong to someone who had already lost something they loved, so they would understand me. In the distance, the government drone sent one last encrypted image back to base. Subject located. Alien identified. Human bond confirmed. Recommend retrieval. But inside, the little house, away from politics and power, one broken man and one fading alien sat at the same table, and for a brief moment, they laughed. The night was quiet outside Jack's cabin. The stars above seemed brighter than usual. Inside, the room was dim. Only a small lantern on the table gave off warm light. Rylara sat by the window, staring at the stars. Jack sat across from her, sharpening a small tool, pretending not to watch her. But his thoughts weren't calm. He had seen the village stairs. He had heard the whispers, and he had felt the weight of that glowing collar on her neck every time he looked at her. Why me? He asked suddenly. Rylara turned. Why you what? Jack laid the tool down. Why did you choose me? That day, when you crashed, you said my name. You begged me to say I was yours. Why not someone else? Rylara stood slowly, then walked to the window. Her voice was soft but clear. Because my ship scanned the region for a compatible male. We needed someone with a certain emotional frequency. It's not about strength, not about status. It's about pain, and still choosing. Kindness. Jack didn't speak. She looked over her shoulder. You lost someone, didn't you? He looked down. My wife. 8 years ago. Transport crash. I never remarried. Didn't want to. Rylara nodded. We saw it. Not just in your records, but in your energy. Grief leaves a mark in our kind's perception. But you carried it differently. You weren't angry. You weren't bitter. You were just quiet. Jack's throat tightened. He stood and walked past her, out the door onto the porch. The night wind was cool. The moonlight hit the old wooden rails in silver lines. She followed. He didn't look at her when he said, So I was just a number in your system? A scan result? She stepped beside him. No. He turned. She looked him in the eyes. You were my choice. I didn't have to bond with you. There were 2 others nearby, one younger, one stronger. But when I felt your presence, I knew you wouldn't see me as property. You would see me as someone broken, just like you. He stared at her. Not as a soldier, not as a farmer, but as a man who had carried loss alone for too long. You should have picked someone whole, he said. She smiled gently. Wholeness is overrated. I didn't need a hero, Jack. I needed someone who understands. And I saw something else in you, too. Jack raised an eyebrow. What? She stepped closer. Her eyes glowed faintly. I saw someone who still had room to care even when it hurt. Silence. Then Jack finally asked, if I hadn't said yes that day, what would have happened? Rylara looked down at the glowing collar on her neck. I would have died in your arms. And I would have been at peace, because the last thing I saw was a human who didn't run. Suddenly, a soft alarm beeped from inside the house. Jack turned fast, instincts sharp. His scanner showed unauthorized landing, 1.2 kilometers west. He looked at Rylara. Her voice was calm. They found me. Jack grabbed his rifle, eyes cold again. Then, let them come. He stepped forward, but she gently caught his hand. You don't have to fight for me. He looked her dead in the eyes. You're wrong. I chose to. The morning was silent. Too silent. Even the wind had stopped moving. Jack stepped out of his cabin holding his old rifle loosely. The scanner on his wrist showed a ship landed just beyond the ridge, 1.2 kilometers west, as expected. The vessel wasn't military. It wasn't loud or threatening. It was beautiful, smooth, shining silver with soft blue lights pulsing like a heartbeat. Illyrian design, no doubt. They didn't come with war, they came with authority. Inside the ship's open hatch stood 3 figures, 2 tall males in glowing robes and 1 woman, her posture straight, her face emotionless. She stepped forward first. Human male, Jack Holt. You hold what belongs to Illyria. Jack stood firm. Her name is Rylara, and she's not a thing. The woman raised a hand slightly, calm, controlled. She is bonded to you without state approval. This is violation. She must return for deactivation and cultural correction. Behind him, the door creaked. Rylara stepped out, her collar glowing bright green now. Her voice didn't shake. If you take me now, I will die in space. The Illyrian official didn't blink. The bond is incomplete. It can be safely disconnected if done within protocol. And if not? Jack asked. The woman looked at him. The host, her, experiences system shock, cellular collapse, mind fade. So, death, Jack said, jaw tight. One of the guards raised a small device. The green light on Rylara's collar began to flicker. She stumbled. Stop, Jack growled. They didn't. She dropped to her knees, eyes fluttering. The bond was breaking. Her chest rose and fell too fast. She was fading. In that moment, Jack's voice cut the air like a blade. Wait! Everyone froze. Rylara's head lifted slightly. Her eyes met his, desperate, waiting. Jack stepped forward, chest heaving, and then he shouted, I accept the bond. I accept her, fully, as mine. The device in the guard's hand burned and shut down. The collar on Rylara's neck pulsed, then turned gold, a color they had never seen before. The official stepped back, stunned. Gold seal, that's final binding. Impossible, one of the guards said. No human has ever. He just did, Rylara whispered. She stood again, slow but steady, walked to Jack's side, and took his hand. They stood as one. The Illyrian official looked at both of them, expression unreadable, then bowed slightly. Under Illyrian law, a gold bond overrides all retrieval rights. She belongs with you now. But know this, others will come. Not for her, but for what you two now represent. The ship left without another word. Jack and Rylara stood on the ridge, watching it disappear into the sky. Her hand didn't leave his, and neither did his. Later, in the quiet of the cabin, Jack made 2 cups of tea. Rylara sat across from him, still tired but alive. He looked at her. You okay? She nodded. Because of you. He nodded back. No going back now. She smiled, slow and gentle. I never wanted to. The sky above Oral 3 that night was wide and full of stars. But the stars were not the only ones watching. At the edge of the canyon cliffs, glowing orbs floated in perfect circles. Between them stood a soft blue platform made of Illyrian crystal, alive and humming with ancient power. Rylara stood on one side, Jack on the other. He wore simple black, the Illyrian cloth they had given him. She wore a long silver robe, glowing softly at the seams, her collar now replaced by a golden necklace that pulsed with her heart. The ceremony was ready. The Illyrian envoy stood between them. A new one, this time respectful, calm. His voice echoed softly through the valley. This is the first of its kind, a cross-species vow between a bonded pair. One born of war and silence, one born of kindness and choice. He turned to Jack. Human, do you accept the oath of joining, knowing that if your soul fades, so will hers? Jack looked at Rylara. She didn't blink. She didn't tremble. She just waited. I do, Jack said. The envoy turned to Rylara. Daughter of Illyria, do you accept the oath of joining, knowing that his grief will be your grief, his pain your own? I do, she said, voice clear. The envoy raised his staff, then stepped forward. They did. The moment they touched hands, the platform beneath them lit up, a spiral of starlight rising from the ground and wrapping around their bodies. Rylara's gold necklace pulsed once. Jack's chest mark responded, glowing. The same gold. For a moment their minds brushed. No thoughts, no words, just emotions. He felt her loneliness, her fear, her quiet strength. She felt his scars, his silence, his loyalty that ran deeper than blood. Then she whispered, You've given me more than survival. You gave me a future, Jack smiled softly, and you gave me something to stand for again. The light faded slowly, but the bond remained, not just glowing, living. The Illyrian envoy stepped back. It is done. Let the stars remember this joining, for no force shall now divide it. Around them, Illyrian witnesses bowed. Even nature seemed to pause, and for the first time in years, Jack felt the weight in his chest not disappear, but change. The pain was still there. But now, he was no longer the only one carrying it. That night, back at the cabin, Rylara stood barefoot on the porch, staring up at the moon. Jack brought her a cup of tea. She took it silently, then asked, Is this what humans call marriage? Jack smirked. It's a little different. She looked at him. Do I make a good wife? He looked at her for a long moment, then answered, You're the kind of wife they write stories about. The news spread fast, too fast. Across colony networks, diplomatic channels, and alien trade hubs, one headline kept flashing, Human and Illyrian form, first cross-species life bond, sanctioned by ceremony. Some cheered, some panicked, and some made plans to stop it. Jack Holt didn't care about the noise, not at first. He and Rylara stayed on Oral 3, living in the same quiet cabin where it all began. The farm still grew. The wind still blew. Birds still flew across the skies like nothing had changed. But everything had. Rylara no longer wore the collar. Her golden necklace pulsed gently, in sync with the glow beneath Jack's skin, a mark that no longer hid, no longer faded. They were bound, fully, and everyone in the stars knew it. The messages came first. From Earth officials, Illyrian council heads, private corporations, most polite, some not. This bond sets a dangerous precedent. Please submit to genetic testing. We strongly recommend separation for diplomatic review. Jack didn't reply to any of them. He had given his word, and he wasn't breaking it for anyone. But silence wasn't protection anymore. One day, as Jack repaired a water pipe in the garden, a shuttle landed nearby. Uninvited. 5 armored men stepped out. Not military, but not amateurs either. Private security, hired silence. Rylara stepped out of the cabin. her hand glowing. Jack dropped the tool, walked toward them slowly, no fear in his eyes. "Turn around," he said. The lead agent raised a device. "We're only here to collect the subject." Quietly. "She's not a subject. She's my wife, the yuck." Agent didn't blink. "You're a threat now, Mr. Holt. You changed the rules." Suddenly Jack's chest glowed gold. Rylara's eyes widened. "It's reacting," she whispered. "The bond's warning you." The agent stepped forward. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." Jack stepped in front of Rylara. "Then hear me clearly. If you touch her, you'll have to go through me." A moment passed. Then another. Then something incredible happened. From the sky, a beam of light fell. An Illyrian ship arrived, silent and majestic. Dozens of figures stepped out, not with weapons, but with presence. The lead Illyrian walked between Jack and the agents. "The flame bond is recognized. Anyone who challenges it challenges Illyria." The agents froze, then quietly stepped back and left. After they were gone, Rylara placed her hand on Jack's chest. "You didn't have to stand in front of me." He smiled. "That's what husbands do." Weeks later, the Illyrian Council invited Jack and Rylara to speak before the stars, not to beg, but to declare. They stood on a floating platform above the ocean of Illyria Prime, broadcast across galaxies. Rylara wore ceremonial robes of silver and blue. Jack wore black and gold, the mark on his chest visible and alive. The High Flamekeeper addressed the audience. "For too long, our kind feared what we didn't understand. This bond proves what is possible. Not domination, but devotion." He turned to Jack. "Humans speak." Jack looked out at the crowd, at millions of watching faces, then at Rylara. "I didn't save her because of politics. I didn't say yes because of pressure. I did it because someone was dying in front of me and no one else would speak. And now she speaks for me, just as I speak for her." The crowd fell silent. Then someone clapped, then many, then thousands. That night, under stars brighter than ever before, Jack and Rylara returned to their home. They weren't alone, but they were stronger than ever, because now the galaxy didn't just see an alien girl and a human man. They saw a bond that could not be taken. Epilogue. The name in the flame. In future centuries, children would ask, who was the first human to marry an Illyrian? And their teachers would say he was a quiet man, a forgotten soldier, a farmer with tired eyes. But when the galaxy asked him to walk away, he stayed. And when the stars tried to take her, he stood. On Oral 3, beside a still living tree, a small stone reads, "Jack and Rylara Holt. He gave her life. She gave him a reason to live it."